made an impact in our community. Again, my name is Patricia DuPont, and I am representing Faith Christian Broadcasting. Today, I am so honored to have two gentlemen to come and to share with us their story. Both of them are born and raised here in Jasper County. They are locally grown, and we're grateful for that. The first gentleman is a neighbor and a friend, Mr. Reginald White. Would you greet the audience, please?
I appreciate being here today, and I'm glad that we all could get a chance to dialogue.
Thank you so much. Our other guest is a four-star general, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, yes.
And his name is Lloyd Newton. And we're honored to have you here today. Would you greet the audience?
Yes, good morning, Pastor DuPont. It is great to be here with you. It's thanks so very much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. So let's kind of dive in. I am here, a resident born in the north, but both my parents is from the south here in Jasper County. And so now this is home. This is where I was raised up. Can you share with our audience a little bit about your upbringing?
Well, I'm born and raised here in Jasper County, Ridgeland as well. Never left the community because it's such a good place to stay. I came up through the local public school system, pick up a trade, and now I work in the law enforcement and Department of Corrections.
Thank you so much. What about you, Colonel?
Yes, I was born and raised right here in Jasper County as well. I grew up a little bit farther north in the county, up in the Grays area.
Yes,
but Ridgeland was always the address for home. I also, like Mr. White, I went through the traditional public school system here in Jasper County. Left and went to college at Tennessee State in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
There I got into aviation, went into the United States Air Force, worked and flew for them for about 34 and a half years, just a few days, and retired in 2000. After I retired, I worked in Hartford, Connecticut for an aviation industrial company, and we built aircraft engines. Some of those engines I had flown in the Air Force. And I moved around a few other places, but the Ridgeland has always kind of jerked at my heart to come back home. And so in 2015, we returned back to the area. So it's great to be home again.
Yes. Wow. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing. There is a saying that is dear, especially during an interview like this, to say, there is no place like home.
Right.
Absolutely. And with that, it comes to me a responsibility. As you've traveled, as you became educated, as you have a heart for home, what is something that, and you've done it in our community at our church, Mr. White, when you came and you spoke to the youth. I think that's a key, that's a big piece of the puzzle that is missing today, that our youth is going so far astray and they don't understand the wealth and the power of their history. And so with that said, could you share a little bit with the audience, Mr. White, about the upbringing? I remember your mom. What is it that made you not want to go way left? And that the teaching, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, you just share from your heart, whatever, how that upbringing had an impact.
Well, with me being a family historian, I got the privilege of researching many of the historical traits of what my family endured throughout the many years. And the one key thing that I would always remember that my grandparents would always say, family is the most important thing. And the reason I never left home is because the residence that I live in has always been the old landmark that when anytime family go out of town, there's always a place they can come to have a meal, spend the night, place of shelter, just to relax, even if it's for a couple hours or for a couple days. So for me, I want to maintain the tradition of having that place where family can always go back to, almost say it's the lighthouse beacon on the coast.
That's good.
To where those who are weary travelers of the family, no matter how far abroad they may go or how local they may be, they can always come back to a place to say this is where home has always been. As far as the young people today, I've noticed that a lot of young people are displaced with tradition as a family tradition. What it's like to sit down and have a meal together at the table, or fellowship, or play board games, or just find holidays and anniversaries as something important to share with each other. And with that, I always want to continue to instill that in children's minds. As a young boy myself, some of the many things that I remember is what the older parents and the older folks would do. Rather, they would have a cookout in their yard, or they had a certain dish that they would cook, or a certain game that we're known to go play with them. But I noticed that with the younger children today, they're not invested in the family traditions as much. And I want to kind of bring that back a little bit. So I myself started reaching out to the younger kids, invite them over to my house. Hey, let's play spades. Let's play checkers. You know, let's do things together as a family. And unfortunately, a lot of these younger children, they don't really understand the concept of interactive playing. Everything is virtual to them and distant. So we're trying to bring that community, family community back. And with family community, it doesn't mean just that they're blood relatives. It could be somebody that lives in the neighborhood, because everybody lived in the neighborhood together. We didn't know who was family and who wasn't, because we treated everybody the same. And that's such a very important thing for a community, is that people interact with each other. That's what makes us human.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Now, I could piggyback on a lot right there. Because when I remember, even though I was born in the North Philadelphia, but every time I would come down during the summer, this your cousin and that's your auntie, they weren't related to us, but we showed them that respect.
Absolutely.
We showed them that respect, and that we could go to their house and eat a meal. And it's something about the atmosphere, even when Granny had that wooden stove. Can you relate? When Granny had that wooden stove, and how she would do it. She'll make up that cornbread from scratch, and I think I'm getting a little hungry here. And she will put it on that wood stove, and it would bake. And it took a long time between breakfast and our next meal because of the way they had to cook it. But when we ate it, we thoroughly enjoyed it. Nowadays, everything is so quick and instant.
Yes.
And you eat it fast, and then before you know it, it's all, you're ready for another meal or whatever. And so the aroma of the house, it's just so many entities that, as you was talking, that brought quality memories of my experience here in the Low Country, living with family and distant relatives. We don't want to take everything from you. What about you, Colonel? Would you share some stories?
Well, it's certainly not very different at all.
Okay.
And so I just want to add to fully agree with everything that Mr. White just spoke about, because I really think all of our families in some way experience much of what he just shared. And what I would say, it takes that, as the saying goes, it really does take that village. And that's what happened many, many years ago. And I think we have to go back to that, where all of us are reaching out. Yes, the times have changed. Many factors in our lives have changed, and therefore it has an impact on our young people today. And I think we just have to be smart enough to think about, okay, how are we able to interact with them like those adults interacted with us when we were growing up? And I'm sure there were many times, particularly for me, they go, I'm not so sure where that boy is going. He doesn't seem to be adapting to the kinds of things that we are trying to teach him. And out of all of that, from my experience of having family around, and as you mentioned, as family migrated to various places, mostly in the Northeast, and would come back, at home, at our house was a central place where people gathered. And we can help with that, as Mr. White spoke to, by reaching out. One of the real important things that my parents also put a lot of emphasis on and I know Mr. White, as well as you and many others, with agreement with me on this. They saw a real value in education. And for some reason, our young people today seem to not be near as interested in that formal part of education. They think if I pick up the street way of doing things, that will just be fine, not realizing that you really do need that formal aspect of education to go along with the street, and then that makes you a lot better at what you want to attempt to do in life. So that's one point. So there are many, many factors that even impact us as we were growing up, that focused us in certain directions. And there are a tremendous number of factors that draw our young people away from, as you mentioned just then, that right way of doing things, that more natural way of doing things that we can be proud of, and it takes them to, quote, quote, the dark side. And we want to reach out to them and see how can we help to keep them on that narrow path that will help them to reach that goal where they can be contributors and successful contributors to themselves, their families, and to our community, and ultimately to the nation. And so education has always been really, really important to me. There were times when I'm sure I didn't do my very best as well. I'm the first to admit that. But it has always been there. And my father, even though my father only had a second grade education, it was amazing what he could accomplish. And he kept hammering on, you got to know, you gotta have knowledge. And so, yes, I want to, and that's one of the reasons I came back home, is strictly because of this. And this is why I reach out in the community and try to give back to that community of how do we expose our young people to more opportunities where they can see, yes, I can do this. If others around the world and in other places, some in my neighborhood, but other places that can do this, they can do it as well. And I like to tell them, look, if this guy could do it, you have far more resources today and opportunities to get it done. There's no question why you can't.
That is true. And that's wonderful lead-in, because Polaris Tech is a charter school here in Jasper County, and I had the delightful privilege of speaking there, just sharing my history to the students, and they were well behaved. I was well received, and I brought some artifacts. And why did I invite them to the table? I had a swarm of children just wanting to ask me, and everybody at the same time, some of the items that I was sharing. So I would like to say thank you to the both of you for being a part of Polaris Tech. Can you give us more information, your heart of wanting to be the founder of that?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Mr. White is on the board there, and he's been bringing great resources and knowledge to the board of just knowing the community. I went away and was gone for a long period of time, but he has that, that foundation of what is going on in the community now, and he knows people and so on. So I just want to thank him publicly for being on the board. But when I came back, I wasn't the first one to help to launch this particular school. There were a group of other people that were already involved in saying, we want to do something for our young people in Jasper County to help with their educational process. We realized there's a system already going on, basically our traditional schools, but we wanted to give both families as well as, in this case, students, another option if they desired to do so. And that then brought on the idea of a charter school. I was called when they found out that I was moving back to the area. Some of them knew my interest in education as well as my experience in aviation. So I was called and asked would I be interested. And I played with them for a bit and say, is this a trick question? Of course I'm interested. So I joined the group, and we started working then to bring about getting approval for the charter, building and developing a school system, and we got to the point where we opened the school in 2018 with a lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedicated people, all focused on one thing, and that was how do we create an environment where our young people can learn. And we have a different philosophy and a different model that we use and it's called project-based learning and or individualized learning for our students. And so that's what we stay focused on. And we focus also, in addition to the requirements for graduation, whether that's in math, science, and so on, we focus in 6 different areas, and that's in IT, we focus in business management, medical services, we focus in logistics and manufacturing, also in aviation. So we focus in 6 different areas. And the reason we focus in those areas because there was some study done up front that said those are the industries and the need in the industry that are here in the local area and in the state of South Carolina. So that's why we focus there. So we got the charter approved in May of 2017, and we told them we're going to open a school in August of 2018, not realizing, well, we did realize in a way, but not truly focusing on, we had nothing to start with other than a charter. And we went to work and we built a facility because there wasn't one available here in the Ridgeland area. We built a facility, hired instructors, developed a staff, got a board, opened the doors in August of 2018. Today, we're roughly 300 what we call learners. We have 300 learners, and we're fortunate to have one of Mr. White's children. His son is there, and he's a senior this year, so we'll be graduating in just another couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I see the smile on your face.
Sure.
Very proud of it. Now, of course, as he spoke about the physical structure of the school, but you also have to have that community support as well. And I'm one of the fortunate ones that was one of the founding families, meaning that I pledged that I would have my son go to school, provided they provide the services of the school. So he was one of the first students that went into the school. Again, he is a senior now, about to graduate, and has been doing exceptionally well. Right now, I feel good as a parent because I worked with a system that afford him all the opportunities that many other people in our community may not have the opportunity to, as well as a parent. You know, in the school system, you have a report card, and report card is how well you've done. Well, in the school system, as a parent, I look at it as like, okay, now my son is going to give me my report card of what kind of parent I am for him as far as his education and growth into and being in adulthood. So I'm feeling very good about being a part of the Polaris school system. I'm being very positive about the potential that he has. And, you know, like General said, we had a research done of what the community is in need for. We found that there's a lot of industry and a lot of commercial growth coming to the area. So now where are the employees going to come from that's going to be working in these industries, in these factories, in these corporations, whether it's from being a custodian up to being one of the general managers. So with the school, it does bring forth an opportunity to give those students or learners the insight of the potential of the opportunities they have, because you have to be hungry before you want to eat. So what we do is we just basically show them this is what meals that's sitting here for you, and the school is going to get you prepared for it. And many of the learners that we have, we look very fortunate that hopefully they will go out and they will seek the opportunities they have further in education, or getting to private sector, or going into the armed services, whatever it is, we want them to be the best at it. And that grows from coming into the school system going up.
Oh, wow. This is wonderful. I know y'all have been wonderful guests, and it's an honor to have you, and there's more questions inside me to ask. And so would you consider a part 2?
Sure.
You would?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Outstanding, outstanding. Because as you're talking about it, and maybe we can have some students, I understand that was missing, because I had kind of groped around because it was just ABCs. It didn't show me a career possible path. And so it was a hit and miss for me to get that. And in some school system, is still similar, even though STEM is on the rise, which is definitely a plus. But I didn't have that growing up, and so now for a child and a learner to realize and recognize early, wow, I see myself soaring in the air. I see myself being a business owner or whatever. Now they can start at a younger age to get that vision, that dream, and begin to work toward it, and not like me flounder until I saw, okay, the light went off to get it. So outstanding, thank you.
It's in our motto.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Well, outstanding. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was about to say, you mentioned that younger age, and that's exactly what we've learned so far out of this experience. Because initially, when we opened the school, we opened with the grades of 6 through 12. And then very shortly after that, we went to 5 through 12. Yeah, we just started in the earlier part of this calendar year of building another facility right on the campus, where what we've learned over this period of time is that we need to get our young people into the system earlier. So we are building another facility, and we're going to plan to open the doors again in August, the next school term, where we will integrate K through 12 into the system. So if we get them in earlier, they will already have the foundation and be oriented to what we do over in the high school. And you also talked about parents, and parents, we just want the parents to know that we are here to help to create an environment for their children, our learners, and our citizens of tomorrow to get an education that they can be proud of, and one that will help them to continue to develop and, again, make contributions to our society. And I absolutely believe that's possible.
Yes.
It's a matter of, number one, having access, number two, taking advantage of the opportunities that are there, and number three, committing yourselves that I'm going to be different, I'm going to be better, I'm going to live my dreams. And I was able to write a short book, and that's what I titled it. I titled the book Living the Dream, because it was always my dream to go into the military. I didn't know anything about flying when I was here. I mean, it just wasn't in the vocabulary for someone like me to go fly an airplane, maybe ride in one day, but never the idea that I could fly one. And then I got exposed to that the fact that, hey, you can fly. So, and that happened when I was at Tennessee State. So I wrote this book, helped to write this book of Living the Dream, and it kind of tells my story. But more importantly, it was focused really for junior high and high schoolers, the book is. And to let them know that they can live their dreams, and they don't have to be like somebody else or do it because mom and dad or someone else said do this. Hopefully mom and dad will embrace the dreams that you have as well as others. So.
Outstanding.
We
Yes.
talk about generational wealth. That's kind of the new culture in our vocabulary when we talk about what are we passing on to the next generation. And when we speak of generational wealth, a lot of time we think about dollars.
Yes.
But generational wealth doesn't have to be just dollars. I worked in the youth enrichment program as well as my current career, and nothing is more inspiring to me to know that I have left a positive mark or inspiration on somebody that hopefully they will pass it on to another. It comes with family, generational wealth. It comes with education, career opportunities. There's so much things that's around the dollar value, because having a dollar is a great thing. I'm not going to say it's not, but some things money can't buy. And the opportunities that we're giving our learners is something that money can't buy. Hopefully it will make them wealthy if that's what they're seeking. But that wealth comes from, I can go a step beyond what my parents did. And maybe their children will go a step beyond what they did. So it continues to grow generationally for the level of education that they receive and the standard of life that they're living. So again, being a part of Polaris Tech, being a part of this community has just been my goal in life to say that when the day that I'm not breathing anymore, will I be remembered?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to pass on to the next generation.
It is certainly not about dollars.
Exactly.
I mean, you won't recognize that right off, particularly when you're young. I didn't. But once you begin to learn and experience, it's much more about having experiences. Because knowledge and experiences, no one can take that away from you, unless they take your life, of course. But the dollar, we've seen many folks have lots of money,
Absolutely.
okay? And today, and tomorrow, a year from now, it's gone.
Exactly.
So that money is not the things that truly makes you happy. It's really those experiences. It's those relationships. It's all of that intangible. It's that growth that you get. And the idea, once you get this wealth of information and experience, to know that, you know what, I can go and do practically anything I want to go and do. That is a terrific feeling.
And hope that they reach back and say, I'm going to choose at least one person in my life, if not a group of people, to chaperone and say, hey, I'm going to be a leader of a new culture or a leader of the culture, and said, I'm going to inspire somebody else to be like me, but then maybe a little bit better.
Yeah.
Outstanding. You got me going here. You got me going. And in closing, I'm going to share this. Even though you talked about your dad and the second grade education, my grandmother didn't have any education because her mother died and she was taken to family to be raised. And actually, she was the one doing all the work, taking care of the family babies. But with that said, when she did get married to my grandfather and they had their children, she would always tell my mother, I want you to go to college. I want you to finish school. She just kept sharing that information, and Mama could hear it in her prayers, that Granny was praying, talking about what's intangible, what's more valuable than money. And she would just keep speaking that, and my mom would hear that. And sure enough, before my grandmother died, my mom was able to get her first degree. And Granny was able to enjoy that with her. And of course, my mom went on to get a doctorate, and then, but with the education, because we do want the people to understand and know, with improvement of yourself and with education, and to me, with service, it will bring the income.
Sure.
I found out that the more I give and serve and become educated and become a part of a bigger picture, which is to help humanity, then opportunities, financial opportunities as well came along with that. So we're excited. We thank you, especially for joining us today.